What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I got a little project I want to start today. I'm not sure if this is going to be, probably be I don't know if it'll be a two-part project, or maybe I'll just get part of it done today, or I'm not sure how this is going to do, or how it's going to be done. It's probably going to be one of these things that I start on and then I figure out that I need to make some changes, or I want to add to and do something a little different. But anyway, what I got going on is I've got my North Star steam cleaner hot box add-on to your pressure washer deal here, which works great, and I got the DeWalt pressure washer here, which works, but it's two separate units, which is great if you're moving it all the time, I suppose, and you want to take the pressure washer without the steam cleaner part or whatever. But I usually use it all together, and so I'm thinking that it would be better and more compact if I mounted this all on one unit, because it takes up quite a bit of room, as you see, being two separate things like this. And the pressure washer vibrates itself over when it's running and rubs up against this. You can see where it's been rubbing right here, this bracket. So it just vibrates all over the place and rubs up against there. So I want to make a frame that I can set this unit on, and then probably take this pressure washer engine off of this pressure washer cart here and put it on the frame over here so that it's all on one unit, and then figure out how to do the tires and axles. I'll have to take off these tires here, because the way this is set up is for you to pick it up here, and these tires are really not even on the ground right now. You have to tilt it up for those tires to touch, and then you roll it. And so I want to set it up where it's setting on 4 tires. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go uptown and bother getting the tires today, but I want to start working on getting the frame built that I have in mind anyway. And so that's what we're going to get started on, and then I'm going to kind of add to as we go, I suppose. See how this project goes. Not sure how much I'll get done, but this is just kind of a messy setup. It works, but it's kind of messy, and I want to make it better. And this cart here is not that great anyway, but you know, mounting it on one frame, if I ever had to change anything, as long as nothing goes wrong with the North Star system, if I just need to change this motor or the pump, which that pump is not the greatest in the world, but I can swap the motor and the pump, you know, with no issue. But if I have to change that, which those are rebuildable, whenever I bought that, North Star told me, or Northern Tool, who makes that, it's North Star, they told me that you can buy parts for it. They pretty well kept everything in stock for it, so that's the reason I went ahead and purchased it, you know, knowing that it should be able to get parts for it. So I should be able to build this, put it together, and then buy parts for it individually as something wears out. So that's what I got in mind to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. All right, guys, I found me a piece of plate out there in the scrap pile, and I just marked off of this edge here and squared it down. This plate doesn't have to be quite this big, but I'm gonna make it this big anyway, I guess, just because. So got it marked. I'm just gonna take the grinder here with my Tabo blade, cut this line out right here, so this plate will be square. It has a little bit of a hump in this plate. This was a plate that was over the wheels, the tires on my gooseneck when I bought it. They had rigged up there because it was rubbing and all that. Those of you who've seen those videos know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's a piece of scrap plate out of the scrap pile out there. I cut it out and then get the square tubing that I'm going to use to build a frame with, and then we'll start putting this thing together. Alright, guys, this is a piece of 1.5" by 3/16 square tubing. This was off of the headache rack off the welding trailer build. We'll cut that trucking part. So this was in the scrap pile as well. I'm just making some pieces for my frame some cross pieces right now. I've got some longer pieces outside. We're just whacking this up with the Metabo wheel as well. I'm going to use one of the ones already cut here for length. Alright guys, I've got my two long pieces here. I think this piece right here is bent a little bit, but I got it square with this framing square and got it held with the magnetic squares there. But I see a little bit of curve in this outer frame right here. I don't think it's going to matter for what I'm doing with it. I don't think you'll be able to tell when I get done. So anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. We'll go ahead and tack this piece in. I don't know the length of the frame rail right here, how long it needs to be yet, until I get everything kind of positioned where I want it. So I got this left long. I just got this sitting here for spacer. That's not where it's going to go. But once I figure out my total length, I'll cut this off however much I need to, and then put my spacers between the frame where I see that they need to go. So I'm going to get the welding machine started up over here, and we're going to get some tacks on that. Alright guys, so I've got the plate where the pressure washer motor and pump is going to sit. I've got it all welded to the frame here. I still haven't figured out my length where I got to cut the end of my frame off down there. I've got the wheels taken off of the steam cleaner box here. Just 2 bolts holes them on one on each side, and that frame, or this is supposed to sit on top of that frame, and then I got to figure out how much it needs to stick out so that I have room for the pressure washer motor. So I need to get this set on top of that. What do you think about that? I've got it kind of mocked up here. I got to figure out, I've about figured out this is where I want the motor at, and I'll tell you why. I could turn this motor any which way I wanted to, really, but I think this is going to be the best, because if I rotate it this way, a quarter of a turn, that'd put my pull cord here, but it's going to put my gas tank up against where the fire burner's at, which is not good. If I turn it back this way, a quarter of a turn, it's going to put my exhaust blowing up against this, which is not good. And if I turn it all the way around, in other words, half a turn, which would be 180 degrees, I'd put my pull cord up against this and make the pump stick out the front, but that's going to put my carburetor and my gas tank over here. So the way I got it gives me the furthest clearance from the burn chamber here to the gas tank, and the furthest to the carburetor where any kind of gas fumes would be. It gives me protection for the pump as far as getting it broke off or anything, hitting it, and for the hose and whatnot. And I have enough room doing it this way where it should be pretty easy to get to, connect your hoses up and adjust your pressure regulator if you need to. I've got it set where there's enough clearance here. You can get to that, and if you need to pull the pump off to replace the pump or work on the pump, there should be enough room to do that without removing the motor. And on the steam cleaner box here, they have these little pads welded on here that this thing sits on. So what I'm going to do is just weld right here on the out and inside. They got it in 4 spots, and that'll weld this to the frame right there, and it'll be anchored. I drill 4 bolts holes here, and this will be anchored. And then we'll have to figure out what we're going to do for wheels and whatnot to be able to move this thing around. So I'm going to pull the motor back off here. I just got it setting up here. I think I got it pretty well square, and I got it marked here with a pencil, and I'm gonna pull this off and drill my holes. We'll get that mounted down, and then we'll get the steam canner box welded on. I still have not figured out where I'm gonna cut my frame rails off at, but I just kind of got them running wild out here right now. But I'm going to make some marks on these and go ahead and whack them off, and I can weld this brace in between to keep them from spreading or whatnot. So I got to do that too. So I'm gonna pull this motor off and get the holes drilled right now, get it mounted on there. All right guys, so I've got my holes drilled for the motor here. I cut a hole for the oil drain plug right there so that it won't go all over the plate, or at least that's an idea. It'll probably go all over the plate anyway, but you know, I did try. So I went to Tractor Supply and I picked up 4 new tires, and those are 15/6/6s, which is the same thing that is on my big dolly, hand truck dolly over there. And those are supposed to be rated at 500 pounds a piece, is what those particular ones are right there. And I picked up some shaft collars. That's what I'm going to use to mount the tires to the axle. This is what I picked up for the axle. That's 3/4 inch galvanized. I didn't need that really galvanized or anything. I way overpaid for what I could have bought that at just 3/4 cold rolled at a metal store, but not a metal store that's open right now. And I was at Tractor Supply, so anyway, I overpaid for that, probably 30 bucks versus what I could have bought it at a metal store. I spent I think $185 for the 4 tires, the collars, and those 2 pieces of round stock there. And then of course I had to get something to eat as well, so I spent 200 bucks while I was gone. These little tires here that was on this thing, those are 410 354s. That was on here. And then on the pressure washer frame, these are 13/5/6s with a 5/8 bore. And I was gonna pick up 2 more of these and use these right here and save some money. But these tires are pretty old. I don't know, these tires are probably 5 years old already. And so I didn't want to buy just 2 new ones and have 2 old ones and then mess around a year or 2, have to buy 2 more of these. I'd be spent the same amount of money as what basically I could just buy 4 new ones right now and put on it and go with a larger size. And that way it'll roll easier if I need to push this thing outside or whatever the case may be. I thought that the bigger tires would be better for it and everything. There's not really much price difference in these versus what the smaller ones cost anyway. So I've got to figure out where to put my axles at, and I'm thinking I want the front one up here somewhere right in this area so that the motor overhangs a little bit to take some of the weight off of this back part, because you need to be able to, you know, pick up on these handles right here a little bit to be able to steer the thing, because they're all just going to be, you know, 4 axles. So you need to be able to pick up on the back of it like a wheel bar to guide it. So I think if I put my axle here somewhere with that motor hanging in front of it, that'll lighten it up a little bit, so it'll be easy to tilt up. At least that's what I'm thinking. So try to figure out, find me a position right there where I think it should go, and then we'll kind of go from there. I got to get this thing over there, get my marks, cut it off square, weld this in, and figure out my axle placement, get those tacked on, and all that good stuff. All right guys, I got the axles where they need to be, at least I hope so, because they're welded in place, or I guess they're going to be where they're going to be at now. If you notice, I've got washers
one on each side down there, and then I got a little sleeve down here. I didn't think about it having to have something for the tire to go up against, and I've been to 2 Tractor Supplies to get 4 tires and 4 lock collars already. So I'm not going back to Tractor Supply to get that. So I had these 2 little collars here, little sleeves, off of some tractor implement pins. So I welded those on this end, and then I had 2 1-inch, I guess, maybe 7/8 washers or whatever. They're a little bigger than the 3/4 inch shaft, but I welded those on that end. That'll work for a stop. And so anyway, this is a pretty expensive project to be building out of scrap, but I guess it is what it is. Anytime you do a project, it gets expensive. I tried to position these axles in like this. The closer you have the axles together, the easier this thing's going to be to turn, because you can lift up just a little bit and skid it across, and your tires are not skidding as far, and you have more leverage because the axle is closer to the center versus if the axle is all the way out here and you're trying to push it sideways. So if the axle is closer to the center, you got more leverage out here when you're trying to push on the handle, so you may not have to pick it all the way up off the ground. Just, lift just a little bit and slide it and be able to push it and steer it where it's got to go. I looked up under the steam cleaner over there and kind of made sure that this axle was not going to be in the way of the fuel filter. It's got a fuel filter under there, or anything that you might need to get to at normal application. So I think that this is going to be the setup. And so now I'm going to grab the tires over there. I'm going to stick them on, stick the little lock collars on. I got to measure and figure out, when I do that, how much I got to cut off each one of these shafts, because this was a 3-foot shaft that I bought at Tractor Supply. And so I don't know, I just left them long. I centered it and left it long. So whatever is left, I'll just have to cut off. Not a big deal. That was the easiest way to do it. Just put them up there that way. So we're going to stick the tires on there, put the collars on there, or at least put one of them on there, figure out what I got to cut off, whack them off with a Metabo, and then flip this thing back over and see how we're going to get everything mounted up to it. All right, guys, I did some measuring there and I got all 4 of them whacked off. And I want to show you this other tire that came off the pressure washer. If you look how these are done, the hub actually sticks out past the face of the tire. And so if I were to use these, they could just set right up against the square tubing like that. That's how they are on a pressure washer frame, and you would not have to do that step. But these here, as you see, are countersunk a 1/2 inch. If you put a straight edge across here, this is a 1/2 inch below the surface of the tire. So I spaced these 1.5 inches from the frame, so that should give me 1 inch of clearance between the tire and the frame. So that should ensure nothing should rub. So set you guys up here. We're gonna get the tire stuck on here and mount it up. The lock collar slide on, tighten down with an Allen wrench. See if I can find my Allen wrench. I don't know if it's the same size as the other one or not. Use the same size Allen head as the ones that I took off of the other frame that I'd put on, even though they were a 5/8 collar instead of a 3/4 collar, because those use a 5/8 shaft there. These are a 3/4 shaft. I thought this would be better anyway with that extra with the extra weight and everything on this. The 3/4 shaft should be quite a bit stronger than 5/8 shaft. All right, that's that. We can flip her over now and see if we can get the other stuff. I got to get the steam cleaner part setting up on here so I can tack it in place. I'm going to try to lift this end up and set it up here and drag it on here. I may have to use a tractor to pick it up with. I don't know yet. This thing's probably about 250 pounds. Thinking I can pick this end up and get it up on here, slide it up on here though. Take it up just under here, like so. On there to the point we're hanging on the pads, man. I got the pads on it now. Should be able to get it pulled up farther. Okay. I don't know exactly how much further it needs to go. I'm thinking I've got to go a little bit further forward. I don't think I had this quite up flush. I didn't mark where it went. I'll roll this back some. Pick the motor up, set the motor up here, kind of get it lined up where it goes. So I get my positioning right there. Oh man. Put this in about 150. Out just a little bit. It's pretty close though. It looks like this thing needs to come on further this direction. Looks about pretty close. We're over flush down here. We'll come back a little bit, I guess. I'm gonna come back just a hair more. Where my axle placement's at, looking like I'm on that fuel filter down there. It's gonna be pretty close. Ain't exact, but it's gonna be pretty close. Kind of see what she looks like there. You see what I'm talking about my axle right here and the fuel filter up under there. I want to make sure it's easy to get to. And you're not fighting that axle. You know, if the axle's right up on the dead center of the fuel filter, it's going to make it harder to get to right there where I got the axle put. It's kind of clear of everything. You want to make sure you got plenty of room here to be able to get to. Adjust your pressure here. you know, without hitting all this with your hand. Hook your hoses up. Your hose is not going to be in the way of the tire or this frame or any of that stuff. I think it's going to work out pretty decent there. So I got to pull this motor back off and make my holes a little bit bigger because they're off just a little bit, so I can get my bolts down in there. And then we can get this down here tacked on also. Spray a little paint on it. I got this thing squared up here, I think, where I want it. You see these pads here on the bottom? I'm just going to run a little weld down. Each one of them is 4 pads on this thing. I'm just going to run a little weld on that pad right there, and it should be good. And I still got to get this motor bolted down. I'm not going to worry about capping the ends of these tubes right now, because I want to look at this thing, and I have an idea on the other end already that I think I want to put some kind of hose reel for, because I got a 100-foot hose over there that's laying on the floor, as you see, in a big pile. It's a mess. And so I want to try to figure out something with that. I don't know when I'm going to do that, if I'm going to do that, but I'm going to leave these pipes open for right now, because I may decide to build some kind of mount off of that, put some kind of hose reel in the future, or I don't know if it'd be better to do it that way or bring it off the side, or just what. It's just something I want to think on. So for right now, I'm not doing anything with that. I'm going to go ahead and weld the burner unit on here, and then we'll get the holes drilled out correctly for the motor. I think the oil drain plug, I think it's gonna work out pretty good right there where the oil should drain out, hopefully. Not making too big of a mess. Show you the bottom of this frame here before I throw it in the scrap pile. Looks like it broke right there. The vibration of this thing. Rusted out right there. This thing's just not made out of much. Going in the scrap pile. This unit over here is looking pretty good. Got a little paint sprayed on it. Went ahead and greased the wheel bearings. I'll probably grease the bearings every, 6 to 10,000 miles. And got my pump hose. That's the output to the pump. Zip tied there, looped around, come back, goes in the burner assembly, and then the output hose is here. I don't have a unit set up to be able to wrap my hose up, so I need something to do that. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that, but this is a big mess being all on the floor like this. So I want to get that cleaned up at some point, and it'd be nice if I had some kind of gun holder on it as well. The one that was on the frame there didn't work too well for that gun. That gun's bigger than the one that came with the pressure washer. It didn't sit in there real well. And then I need a place to put my tips, which again is not a huge deal, because 9 times out of 10 I use the same tip every time I wash something. So that's not a huge deal. It's set up where it can be used as is right now. And as I say, I'm leaving these open because I'm going to design something, figure out something other to come off that with, I believe, in order to store the hose, and maybe on the other end for something as well. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to think on that and go from there. But I'll set you guys up over here. I'm going to push it around the shop, see how it rolls, what I think about it. I need to put a little air in these tires here. They are low, but they'll probably be okay for right now. I think it's going to work pretty good. Oh yeah, that's pretty good there. Not too big of a deal. And you can pick up on it if you need to. I'm going to guess that's probably a good
I don't know, 70, 80 pounds to pick up right there. You can push down on it if you need to. If you're trying to cross over something, you can go over something with it. But you don't really have to pick up on it. I mean, you can just pull sideways like this and steer it as well. I think it's going to work out pretty good. That's what I had in mind. If I wanted to get real fancy with it, I could get some sheet metal and enclose this right here with sheet metal wrapped around the back and put a decal or something on it. But probably not going to do all that. I think it's a nice little unit the way it turned out there. And you know, I can replace any part of it. Pump goes bad, I'll buy a new pump, probably a cat pump put on it. Motor goes bad, stick another motor on it. Burner assembly goes bad, I take my Metabo wheel, 4 wells right there, lift the whole unit off. If I don't want to go to trouble try to rebuild it or can't get parts for it, lift this whole unit off and order another one. Drop a new burner assembly on there. So this setup is where you could you could replace piece by piece if you needed to. If one part of it goes bad, instead of throwing the whole thing away and starting over, you could make this electric start if you wanted to. I don't see the reason need to, because it cranks pretty good. But there is room over here if I wanted to do something like that a battery would probably fit right here. I'd have to do like a little tray up under here, and a battery would sit right there. Your starter mounts over here on this side, but I'm not going to do all that. Like I said, that Honda engine usually cranks within 2 pulls anyway, so I've got no reason to worry with that.
All right, guys, so I got it back over here where it originally was, right where I had it setting whenever I first started the video. And it takes up less space the way it is. I just got to get something done with it. Hose, it's taking up more space than the whole steam cleaner unit itself, and kind of a trip hazard and everything else. It's messy. So I'm going to get something other figured out on that, but I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Being one unit for my use works better because I'm not going to separate it and take part of it. This should not be vibrating around like it was, because the pressure washer part would just vibrate around and move itself around. It shouldn't do that anymore. This is a solid mount, and if you need to move this thing, you can run forks up between the tires like this and pick the whole thing up and load it in the back of a pickup or something if you need to. In case anybody wants to know the specs, I came out 53 inches long is what my frame length is. I may have could have went 52. That would have given me, about an inch less clearance there, but happy with 53. This frame is flush. If you put a framing square, it doesn't look like it because this turns, but it is actually flush with the upper part right here if you put a framing square on the floor. And the frame comes just a little bit out past flush from the cover there. You get happy pushing it around, something like crashing into something. That'll keep you from damaging the front of the unit there. The axles are about 14 and a half, or pretty close to that, from the end of the frame to the center of the axle. So they're almost somewhere around 2 foot apart. You can do the math on that and figure that out, but that's pretty close. Right off the top of my head, it's somewhere around 2 foot between the axle centers. The tires are 16 by 6 from Tractor Supply, and the frame is 18 3/4 inches wide, and it's 1.5 inch square tubing, 3/16 wall with a piece of 3/16 plate. I think it turned out really good for stuff I had in the scrap pile out there. It's pretty good pickings. I hate that it costs, right at $200 for the tires and axles, but I didn't want to try to use the tires that I had and have 2 different sizes, or buy 2 and have 2 new, 2 old. Just bite the bullet, put full brand new ones on it. It's done, and I think it'll be a good setup for me. So that's all I'm doing for today. Go ahead and wrap the video up. Who knows how long this is going to be. Have to come back at a later time and figure out what to do with this hose and add on to this system and make it more like what I want, a little neater setup so it's not so messy and all that good stuff. So anyway,
Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.